Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Today is Wednesday, October 20th, and we're here for Everything is a Viewpoint with Venerable Rabina Corton. We're always so happy to have Venerable Rabina back with us. She's here tonight to talk a little bit about emptiness. I want to introduce our speaker. I always say she needs no introduction, but I do it anyway. Venerable Rabina was ordained as a Buddhist nun in the late 70s. She's worked full-time for the FPMT and over the years has also served as editorial director of Wisdom Publications, editor of Mandala Magazine, executive director of Liberation Prison Project, and of course, as a touring teacher. Most recently, she's taking social media by storm. I personally am a big fan of her Something to Think About videos on social media. So I recommend them to everyone. So with that, I'd like to offer a mandala on behalf of the center before we turn things over to Venerable Rabina and for our opening prayers. This ground, anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha field and offer it. May all living beings enjoy this pure land. Iram Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Niryatayami.
Okay, everyone. I can't see you all yet, but I'm sure I'll see you in a minute. So here what we've just done before was offer the whole kind of the universe, all the objects of the universe to the Buddha as a request for the teachings. And here we're just expressing 2 things. We're expressing our reliance on the Buddha and his teachings. And the second 2 lines stating this kind of marvelous goal or purpose or motivation, as the lamas would call it, for our being together here to listen to these teachings. And that is to think, that we're listening to these teachings so we can take some tools from it, put it into practice in our daily life so that we can eventually become amazing, fully developed beings so we can be of benefit to others. It's saying something like that. Sangye chadang soke chognam la jancho baru dagni kyapsuchi dagi chanyen gi personam ki drola penche sangye dropashog sangye chadang soke chognam la jancho baru dagni kyapsuchi dagi chanyen gi personam ki drola penche sangye dropashog. And one time in English, I'll say a few more words just to express it. We're saying that until we're enlightened, we're going to rely upon the Buddha, the Dharma, and the spiritual community. And by the virtuous karmic seeds we plant in our mind by listening together to these teachings, may we become a Buddha, no matter how long it takes, so that we can be of benefit to others. All righty. Here we all are. Let me see you all. Now I can see you all. Good. Hello, everybody. Hello, Betty. Happy to see you, darling. Okay, everybody, there's Donna. So listen, yes, we're going to talk about emptiness, but maybe we're going to talk even more broadly. It's such a funny statement, isn't it? Everything's a viewpoint. It sounds kind of a bit wishy-washy. But actually, when we understand the Buddha's view of the mind, how we live at the level of conceptuality, the grosser level of consciousness from the Buddhist perspective is all conceptuality, including anger and attachment and all the dramas, all the emotions, as we call them. We think conceptuality is here and emotions are down here. But for the Buddha, all of our emotions, positive and negative, are all rooted in being conceptual thoughts. And basically, conceptual thoughts are viewpoints. I'm not even meant to be sarcastic, but it's quite a surprise to us, But already it's implying the final one, that ultimately everything comes down to the way we label things. But that's really the Buddha's that's really the general point that Buddha makes, And to see the mind in this way, it's quite a revelation, but it takes us time unless we study the Buddhist view very specifically about the mind. I mean, when we hear love, attachment, anger, jealousy, we think, oh yeah, I know that. But we do, we've got our own interpretations, And we have this very vivid interpretation of what we call an emotion, whether it's a compassionate emotion or angry. We have a very vivid feeling of what an emotion is. But the Buddha's view is so specific. And if we can really look at it this way, it really helps us do the job of being a Buddhist, basically, which is Lama Yeshe beautifully paraphrases it as, being your own therapist. It's not a joke, So how is everything a viewpoint? What on earth does this mean? Well, a way of putting the model of the mind in Buddhism, Buddha talks about how we've got 3 categories of states of mind. There's no fourth. There are those that are neurotic, I-based, fear-based, delusional, affliction, all these words we know so well from studying Buddhism. Neurotic, you know, Buddha would have liked that word, a Greek word, he would have liked that. All the unhappy states of mind. And we're so intimately familiar with these, and we sort of totally take them for granted. And in our culture, psychologically and in our neuroscientific views, these are normal parts of a normal person. But the Buddha's view is so radically different, it's quite surprising. We know that what Buddha is essentially saying, that what he has found from his own direct experience, that all the unhappy, neurotic, deluded, I-based, fear-based states of mind are not intrinsic to us. They're not integral to who we really are, and thus can be removed. This is quite a shock to us, you know. In fact, it's almost laughable. It's almost shocking to think that you can be a normal person and have no attachment, no anger, no fears, no jealousy, no depression. But that's exactly what Buddha says we can all accomplish. In other words, and that points to the second category of states of mind, the positive ones, the virtuous ones, the useful ones, the reasonable ones. And these are the ones we all know too: love, wisdom, kindness, compassion, generosity, forgiveness. We know these words so intimately. And the Buddha's view is there's an incredibly clear distinction between these 2 categories of states of mind, you know, incredibly clear. The first lot are, you have these various characteristics, and this is what we're getting to about a viewpoint. One of the key characteristics of all the negative ones, implied by that word negative, is that they're miserable. They cause you to be miserable. Not, you know, when you're angry with your boyfriend and you say, why are you unhappy? You'd say the boyfriend is the cause. Buddha says, yeah, maybe. He's just the catalyst. The real reason you're suffering, the real reason you're miserable is because of the anger. And this is a very clear point that Buddha makes, again, as shocking as it sounds. Why are you happy, Rabina? You've got a happy feeling. Oh, that's because of the boyfriend. No, you're happy. You've got a happy feeling, maybe because you're feeling loving or because you're feeling virtuous, you know. So then the third category of states of mind, you've got the negative, neurotic, deluded, ridiculous ones that causes pain. You have the positive, optimistic, appropriate, valid ones that are called the virtuous states of mind, if you like. And we don't like using that word in modern psychology. It sounds rather sort of judgmental, you know, negative and positive. You've got this third lot, which I like to call the mechanics of the mind: intention, attention, concentration, discrimination, these parts of our mind without which we wouldn't function. But, you know, a murderer and a meditator both need mindfulness. Mindfulness is his ability to keep your mind, bring your mind back to what you're concentrating on. And that's not in its nature negative or in its nature positive. And this is where we have to get a sense of what these terms mean in Buddhist psychology. It's not in modern psychology. We don't use these words at all. So we've got these 3 categories of states of mind. So in this first lot, the first and second lot is what we're talking about here. So, you know, if I say, let's say, who's my boyfriend tonight? I've got any boys here? They're all girls. I can't tell the difference these days anyway. Well, there's one. There's Claude. Let's say Claude's my boyfriend. I presume Claude's a girl. He looks like a boy. Yeah, we can't tell these days. So let's say Claude is my boyfriend, and I will give you, I'll tell you what I'm seeing when I see Claude. I'm saying, wow, he is divine. He's so handsome. He's so kind. He's such a good person. Now that's a series of thoughts, isn't it? Think about it. It's a series of thoughts. Now, what will I say next week when I discover he's been cheating on me? I will have another series of thoughts, but they will be completely different. They will be how, you know, he's evil, he's horrible, he cheated on me, I don't trust him, he's an untrustworthy person. So they're both, basically, they are both viewpoints. Think about them. Claude hasn't got it much older in 1 week. He's got no extra gray hairs, no extra wrinkles, not much extra fat. If you have a photo of Claude 1 week ago, when my thoughts were these optimistic, positive thoughts about him, my viewpoints, and then a week later, when I have these angry, horrible viewpoints about him, from the point of view of Claude, there's not much difference. So it's so clear that the first lot of thoughts are a bunch of viewpoints based upon what, and they're all, and this is the key point, the Buddha's view, the viewpoints we have are totally based, the neurotic ones are totally based on what Claude does for me. So if Claude is nice to me, I'll have optimistic viewpoints about him. I'll have positive viewpoints about him. But if he's not nice to me, I will have mean, nasty viewpoints about him. But this is the point. we don't ever for 1 second, after you've discovered that Claude is cheating on you, you would never think saying, how dare he do that to me? He cheated on me. He is the cause of my suffering. We would never think for 1 second that it is a viewpoint. We would, listen to this, we think it's the truth. Now, anybody you know who's got a very stubborn mind, a very narrow mind, and this is really Buddha's view about what ignorance is, very fundamentalist, this, black and white, as we say, very fixed mind. That's exactly what we're talking about. So when a person's got a very stubborn, fixed mind, like if I go to Starbucks and want my coffee a very particular way, very determined, I want it exactly this at 180 degrees and this at 2 shots and blah, 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 a very fixed, and I'm attached to that view, attached to that wish. Then the second my coffee deviates even slightly, we know this, from that wish, I will get upset, and I won't ever think that it's possible. And this is the key point. When we understand that how we see the world is through the lens of various viewpoints, and when they're the neurotic viewpoints, they're all in terms of whether or not that object, that person, that event, that thing, that shape, that sound, that color is what I want or not. So our viewpoints are completely self-centered. And they, like one week ago, Claude, from his own side, take me out of the equation. Take me out of the equation. Claude maybe is an objective, maybe we can say Claude is this tall, he's this weight, he's this color, he wears that thing, he's got brown hair. You could even say, well, maybe they're facts, and they might be facts, but they're still viewpoints because it's how we label Claude. But when they start getting emotional, when it's related to how Claude is to me, the viewpoints we have are completely through the lenses of whether or not he makes me happy. But we don't, the real point I'm getting at is we don't think that they're viewpoints. We think they are objective truth. So now when it comes to things like, Claude is wearing an orange sweater. It looks like orange to me, okay? Claude is wearing an orange sweater. Let's say that. Now you'd think, well, that's not a viewpoint. We would say, but that is the truth. But even when we get to the deepest understanding of the Buddha's view, emptiness, you could even stay still, that is a viewpoint. It's an agreement between us in the English language that color is labeled orange. So it's not as if it's not. This is the thing about what Buddha's saying. The negative, neurotic, deluded conceptual thoughts definitely are conceptual thoughts and definitely are viewpoints, but they don't have much basis in reality. But saying that Claude is wearing an orange sweater, or that Claude is this tall, or whatever, that we can also say they are viewpoints, but you could say that they are conventionally, they are correct. They are correct. So all the viewpoints in our mind, Buddha says, some of them are virtuous, some are reasonable, some are valid, and some are completely ridiculous. But they're all, from the ultimate point of view, finally, they're all viewpoints. But we come to an agreement. Like if I point out my thermos, everybody would say that is a truth. It's a conventional truth to say that's a thermos. It is. And what is that? What's that, mummy? You give the definition. It's a flat-bottomed metal container. And what does it do? It keeps your tea warm. Now, that's a truth. It's establishing something as a conventional truth. But when we look at it ultimately, as we all know from the way the lamas talk, from the way Buddha talks, from the side of the thermos, there's nothing there that makes it that. It's our mind. Finally, it's our mind that calls it that. We agree it's that. It functions as that. But nevertheless, there's nothing intrinsically there. This is the subtlest way of seeing this idea. So, I mean, what's the learning in this? What's the learning in this? Is to question our thoughts, to question our mind, to question our viewpoints. I mean, especially the negative ones, especially the emotional ones, or even if it sounds like a positive one. Oh, Claude is so divine. This is completely it's through the lenses of my attachment, because he's kind to me, because he gives me things, because he looks at me with dazzled eyes. So, of course, I see him, he appears back to me, as Lama Zopa says. Claude appears back to me as gorgeous, but totally seen through the lenses of my attachment. In other words, and this sounds pretty cruel, but we see the world Every being in the universe sees the world through the lenses of our own needs. And this is certainly how we can see the negative ones. So, you know, the emotional, the neurotic, distorted ones that have no basis in reality. Because my attachment is getting what it wants from Claude, then he looks wonderful to me. And then when he cheats on me and my attachment is not getting what it wants, he looks terrible to me. And this is the point about all the delusions, the neurotic viewpoints, they're all distorted. This is the key thing. And this is something when we can understand the way Buddhism describes. We know about exaggerate. We know about these things, attachment, anger. We know the words, but the key function of the neurotic states of mind, the neurotic conceptual thoughts, the neurotic viewpoints, is that the stronger they are, the more exaggerated they are. So the more anger I have towards Claude, the more horrible he appears to me. And the more I utterly believe it's objective truth and nothing you tell me will persuade me otherwise, you know. We see this, we understand this. I mean, look at, you know, when the Buddhists talk about wrong views and talk about this kind of very fixed, ignorant mind, well, fundamentalism is a really good word for that. And when we're stuck in our viewpoints, we can see we're fundamentalists. No, this is right and you are wrong. And there's not a millimeter of space, you know. We understand this. And this Buddha's saying this is the extent to which we suffer. This is the extent to which we suffer, you know, the believing in these viewpoints that we have, believing that what I think is true. Now we know, you know, when you go on YouTube and let's say you look at all the, you read about all these conspiracy theorists, these people would seem to me like we laugh at it, the off the wall, bizarre views out there in the universe about what's real and what's not. You know, then you think, how can they possibly believe that? Well, that's exactly what Buddha's saying to all of us. When I'm angry with Claude, I've got this very fixed fundamentalist view based solely on the fact that he did something mean to me. He might be really kind to 27 other people. I do not care because we are so I-based and all these neurotic views are completely I-based. I would never think I'm a fundamentalist. I would say, but he is horrible. Look what he did to me. He is kind. Look what he did to me, we'll say. We confuse this kind of logic because I is either getting what it wants or it's not getting what it wants, you know. So we would never think we were fundamentalists, but that's being fun. That's what Buddha means by this very ignorant kind of mind, very black and white mind. And we've all got that when we're stuck in our views, stuck in our ways. Even no, I don't want to go to that movie. I want that movie. No, that's a bad movie. I want this movie. We ordinary little baby things. Forget about whether you think, you know, you believe in the QAnons or whatever they're called, you know. It's just an extreme level of superstition. In fact, one of the words in Buddhism, Lama Yeshe would use it a lot, and it's sounds surprising. One of the words you can use as a synonym for these neurotic states of mind is that they are superstitions. So what's a superstition? Think about this. A superstition is something that you believe in that just isn't true. I mean, we think of it as kind of silly, a superstition, but delusions are in their nature superstitious. In other words, attachment, when you see the cake on the plate through the lens of your attachment, the cake and this is not, forget even emptiness yet, but it's the same approach. It's just emptiness is more subtle, that's all. And we're just talking the branch delusions, for example, attachment, and forget about Claude, just the chocolate cake. When you're seeing the chocolate cake on that plate, so you are correct insofar as it is a chocolate cake, it's not a carrot cake. You've at least got the conventional label correct, but that's about all you get correct. Because the rest of it, the way that cake appears to us, or as Lama Zopa puts it, the way everything out there in the world, and this in particular here, the cake, appears back to us, is in the aspect, this is how they put it, in the aspect. It's rather curious. It's in the aspect of whatever's in the mind. So if attachment is in the mind, which is emotional hunger, which has the function of feeling like I'm missing something. And then because of habit, I become very attached and needy for the chocolate cake. So as soon as the chocolate cake comes, we know what happens. I mean, we're really emotionally quite disturbed. You can't say no to it. Before you know it, the hand is out and it's in the mouth without even thinking about it. You know, we know this. Because why? What's happening? Because it is appearing back to us as incredibly delicious. See, this is where to distinguish between valid viewpoints and invalid ones really gets quite difficult. Let's say this chocolate cake really did win the chocolate cake prize, you know, in the, what do you call it? In Australia, we call it the Royal something or other show. What do we call them here? When you have all these people to make their cakes and they bring their cows and you all have this competition to get blue ribbons. What's it called? In America, what do you call that?
Fair.
Huh?
That would be a state fair.
There you go, a state fair. That's exactly right. So you know, people bring their cakes and their cows and you win competitions. So you could argue, but Robina, that cake is the best cake. It's been pronounced by all the chocolate cake experts to be the #1 chocolate cake. Still no contradiction. So it's not as if there's no delicious chocolate cake there. This is the interesting point. And this is where it's hard to see the difference. It did win the prize. It did win the chocolate cake. And if you taste it and you're an expert, you will definitely distinguish it's the better than the others. That's not contradicted here. But it's kind of, because what we tend to think is, well, if I'm seeing through the lens, through the chocolate cake, through the lens of attachment, and it's a big lie, then it doesn't really matter what the chocolate cake is like. No, that's nihilism. There is a delicious chocolate cake there, but this is now getting to the emptiness one, but not intrinsically, not in the cake itself, not on the plate. That's the thing. And that's the way we see it now when the mind gets all overexcited and has no control. And we're just talking chocolate cake here, forget the boyfriend. You know, the mind is so, and this is where another whole aspect of attachment is what it comes from, what is exaggerating, why attachment exaggerates the deliciousness. This is kind of an interesting point. It's a way of putting it. The more, this is where the fundamental energy of attachment is emotional hunger. Now think about this. If you are hungry for something, it's obvious you're missing it, isn't it? It's obviously you're lacking it. And that's the energy of attachment. The stronger this emotional hunger is there, what is another way of putting it is the strong, that is to that degree, the strength of our dissatisfaction. I don't have enough. In fact, even more fundamental, I am not enough. So attachment, this emotional hunger, is a symptom of a very small, unhappy, dissatisfied person. This is really a good way to put it. And so then the more you feel like you're lacking something, the more you feel you are not enough and don't have enough, the more the emotional hunger and the more that attachment then leaps upon the cake and makes it look like the most divine cake in the universe. And then you're convinced, this is attachment, is convinced that when you get the cake in the mouth, you'll get satisfaction. So it is a mental illness. It's not really a joke. Attachment is a mental illness. And the Buddha says it's the fundamental mental illness of all the universe. Of course, ego grasping is the root delusion, but attachment is its main voice. So it's a viewpoint. So an attachment, so we're so overwhelmed by the emotional component of attachment that it's hard to see until we start to look into the Buddhist way of putting it, that it's all those emotions are rooted, underpinned by a conceptual thought. And this is where, when you study Buddhist, the Buddhist model of the mind, you learn the definitions, and the definitions are like bare bones, The definition of attachment is a conceptual thought that exaggerates the delicious aspects of an object. It's a really good way to put it. What is aversion? Aversion, expressed strongly as anger or internally as depression, is a conceptual thought that exaggerates the ugly aspects of an object. So they're the definitions. They're conceptual thoughts. But because we're so addicted over countless lifetimes, Buddha says, to these conceptual thoughts and totally believe their story, that it almost sounds like a joke to say that they are rooted in being conceptual thoughts, but they are. That's the point. And that's what we have to do, the drilling down in our mind and going beyond the emotional component, beyond all the drama, and getting to literally hear the way attachment exaggerates the deliciousness of something, But it's so utterly primordial. I mean, this is why it's so hard to see it this way. So in the end, attachment is a viewpoint. The cake is divine. That's a viewpoint. The person who's got allergy and would vomit if they eat a chocolate cake, I don't care how many blue ribbons it's got. It will never in a million years appear delicious to that person. It will appear repulsive and they will vomit. So it's so clear that there's nothing, it's clear from those simple examples that there's no viewpoint that has an absolute truth to it. It's so clear. It's so clear from that, you know. And that's what fundamentalism is. That's what, when they call in Buddhist psychology, wrong view. It's called fundamentalism, you know. Fixed mind. And this is the thing. Nobody would think that their attachment to their boyfriend is a viewpoint. Nobody would think their anger to their horrible ex-boyfriend who abused them is a viewpoint. Viewpoint sounds too casual because it implies, oh, it's just a viewpoint. Wow, I see. You mean there's another way to see it? It implies that, and that's too shocking. Because if you know, this is where the problem is, because this is the point. That chocolate cake will have won the blue ribbon. So it's not saying you chuck the chocolate cake out with the baby with the bathwater and say there's no good chocolate cake. There is a good chocolate cake. And this is exactly the same with anger. Let's say Claude did cheat on me. There's no argument. You saw him cheat. So that's a truth as well. So the cake won the blue ribbon, fact. Claude cheated on me, fact. They're not disputed. But the part that's difficult for us is that we assume the logic is, we assume it's logical that because he cheated on me, therefore I hate him. Therefore I see him through the lenses of anger. And that's the point that's hard to see. There's no logic to that. That's what Buddha's saying. You know, it's like, this is why I always use that example of my friend in prison who's now out of prison, Sonny, who for 17 years was in prison in Florida, first on death row and then eventually not on death row, got out after 17 years because she was found to be innocent of killing 2 policemen along with her husband. He was executed before they found him to be innocent and his head burst into flames. Can you imagine? But the thing is, there she was in this nightmarish environment. She and her husband accused of killing 2 policemen. And, you know, in the beginning, you can't believe it. They've got to see the truth. You think this is insane. How can they think we killed 2 policemen? But there they were on death row. He even got executed. So this nightmare, you know, but she said, she's not a Buddhist. She's a little Jewish hippie. Now she's a little old Jewish hippie in a wheelchair in Ireland, helping other people who have come from prison. You know, she's amazing. But it blew my mind, you know. She told me that there she was for many years locked in her own cell, one cell on her own with a Bible, right? And she said, I mean, many things she said, but one of the things she said, several things she said. One of the things she said was, I knew I had the choice to do what? To see things differently. To see things differently. His Holiness Dalai Lama was asked one time, His Holiness, how do you apply emptiness in daily life? It sounds so abstract to us. And the answer was so simple, but so profound, because it's the essence of it. He said, try to see things from another point of view. And that's exactly the point. Another point of view. Another viewpoint. But it's like insane to think that woman, what the hell do you mean she can see that from another point of view? She is innocent. She didn't kill 2 policemen. Her husband was executed. She is being treated badly. She is in on death row. She is in isolation in a cell. What do you mean? What else is there to see? That's the thing. That's the point. Even just forget that nightmare, but then Claude cheating on me, to hear that His Holiness says, well, Rabina, try and see it from another point of view. It's almost like madness. What the hell do you mean, Your Holiness? He did cheat on me. You see, in other words, the viewpoints we have when they're very emotional, that anger in my mind is so enormous, and it's based on one action or 10 actions, whatever, but it paints the whole of Claude, doesn't it? With that one brush. That's how these are exaggerating, because Claude might have cheated on me, but that doesn't mean all the good things he did for me were suddenly annihilated. But that's what we think. Because the anger is so huge and it paints the whole story, and it's not possible to see it any other way. That's the way the deluded mind works. So this woman, Sunny, she's not a Buddhist, like I said. She had this incredible, I would call it emotional intelligence. She could see that her own mind was what was in charge, that she knew she had the choice to think differently. Now, why would she want to think differently? Because she was already living in this nightmare of being wrongly accused, but also living in the nightmare of her own anger. And she knew that was a nightmare. She could not stand the anger. She knew she didn't want to be angry. She didn't want to go out of her brain with rage. That's so brave, so astonishing. And that's exactly what we're talking about here. This is exactly what Buddhist practice is, you know. In other words, she was able to see it from another point of view. In other words, she was able to lessen the anger. Instead of painting the whole environment with anger, she was able to, because the anger was less, she was able to see other things that were good. She had the choice, she said. And then she said, at some point, I realized I couldn't change anything, but they couldn't take my mind from me. So I decided, and I told this story so many times, I decided I am not a prisoner. I am a monk. I am not in a cell. I am in a cave. Now that's so extreme. I mean, that's like Lama Zopa's exact teachings. He teaches at that level all the time. And there was this ordinary woman, you know. I mean, I find it so inspiring. It's unbelievable. Because you could say she didn't, and this is where it's so interesting, she didn't have much anger. This is hard for us to accept because we just think anger is a normal state of mind. And when a really bad thing happens, naturally, everybody will be angry. Buddha completely disagrees. You are born with the tendencies you've got. And some have very powerful tendencies to be angry when attachment doesn't get what it wants. And some people, like Sunny, don't have much anger. This is hard for us to accept because we believe the anger is totally triggered from the external environment. No, Buddha says, it's a habit in your mind, baby. And that's the point. And for me, anger, it sounds such a cute thing. In modern psychology, we don't go on about anger. We just think it's a normal state of mind. But when you know people yourself in your own life who don't have much anger, they're very sane people. They're really quite happy. They're quite content. Their minds are more spacious. They can see things from other points of view. Anger is the one that is so painful. And I'm talking about depression as well. Depression is internalized aversion. It's a state of mind that comes when attachment doesn't get what it wants. It's so primordial, you know? So that's what practice is. But to see them as viewpoints, Sunny could see that. So she changed, took away the viewpoint to change. I'm not a prisoner, I'm a monk. So she wasn't living in La La Land. She knew she wasn't in Tibet in a cave. She's not stupid. But she was able to label it differently. And this is the point now. What's the point of this? Guess what? She didn't go crazy. I've met so many prisoners in and out of prison, wrongly accused or whatever. Most are kind of emotionally stunted because you're treated like an infant in prison. You're treated like an animal sometimes as well, with great respect. Animals are treated better. And then you completely have no tools to work on your mind. So there's this enormous well of rage and frustration and despair that you don't know how to deal with. But Sunny wasn't like that. She found the tools within herself to see her environment, to see her whole reality in a different way. And I mean, when you meet her, she's just this little old lady in a wheelchair. You would never, ever imagine any hint of the nightmare of those 17 years because she was able to deal with it, to work with it. It's very powerful, you know. She was able to change her mind, able to see things differently. I mean, we talk. She's not interested in karma. She doesn't talk about karma. We have talk other things. This is my own interpretation of this woman, you know. So delusions have the function of exaggeration. The stronger the attachment, the more demented you are internally, the more frantic, the more hungry, the more you dump on that object, and the more you paint an insanely ridiculous, exaggerated picture of the object. And then when you know, like when I'm in love with Claude, totally attachment taking over, and then he cheats on me, the bubble bursts and you go crashing down to despair, to rage. And these are viewpoints, states of mind. So the job of being a Buddhist, to see our viewpoints, to question their validity, to see if they are valid, because a valid viewpoint, I mean, even just conventionally speaking, if you say 1 + 1 is 3, we know from math that's not a valid viewpoint. 1 + 1 is 2 is also a viewpoint, but we've all agreed that it's a useful one. And so we've all shaken hands and agreed that that's a valid viewpoint. But it's still a viewpoint. This is what's so fascinating. And it's also true. But a viewpoint that isn't valid, like attachment and anger, they distort and exaggerate. So they're viewpoints, but they are distorted. There's no objective basis. That's really what Buddha's telling us, you know. So our job is to distinguish between the valid ones and the rubbish ones. That's the whole point. That's the source of our happiness. I've only talked for half an hour. Look at that. Any questions? Have a conversation with me. Yeah, go, Claude.
I want to say thank you so much for talking about this topic. And it was almost like you were talking straight to me. And of course, you always have this powerful effect on my mind. And you've helped me in the past before when I had that horrible motorcycle accident.
Yes, exactly.
And so so first of all, the struggle that we're dealing with right now is especially my adopted son. And he can get pretty violent.
Wow.
He can say, "I'm going to kill you."
Wow.
Last week he smacked me in the back of my head.
Yes.
And we know that he doesn't really mean it. But I want something that I can do. And then the only thing I can think of is insight meditation to kind of see it from a different point of view. Now, granted, I used to be.
Seems to me, Claude, but first of all, there's two things, Claude. You know, you have to work on your own mind. There's no doubt.
Yes.
But, you know, the real thing that's got to inform your response is the way to help him. I mean, of course, if you're just full of, let's say you're full of rage, you're not helping yourself and you're not helping him. So clearly you've got to be able to be wise. But I mean, the major one is to be able to see his mind and know what is most beneficial for him. So what, just even from that point of view, what do you think?
That's what I need help with. And so we're looking for a therapist and stuff like that. He has ADHD, anxiety disorder, PTSD, attachment disorder.
Well, all of this from the Buddhist perspective is called lots of attachment and lots of anger. And it's not just being sarcastic. So tell me about it. Tell me his good qualities.
Oh, I mean, and so that's when you started saying that from seeing it a different point of view in my meditation this morning, it was a guided meditation. It says, try to find somebody who is incredibly difficult. And tell me the things that are positive about
Precisely. So tell us his good qualities.
So
there's a reason for my question. Tell me about his good. Has he got good ethics, would you say?
What
I mean by, does he lie? Does he steal? Does he harm animals? Does he want to hurt people? I mean, has he got kind of negative intentions, do you think, underneath the actions? You see, there's our actions and then there's our mind. And I was a wild child and my mother had to send me to boarding school, but I had fundamentally good ethics. And I discovered that when I went to boarding school, I became like a saint, you know? So is he a liar? Is he cheat? Does he steal? Does he want to harm animals? I mean, tell us about his mind. What do you think?
Well, he can just get aggressive. I mean, he's gotten better. He'll start throwing things. He'll start.
But what is his mind like? Does he lie and steal?
No.
These are what I mean by ethics. We don't think about this in modern psychology. We only talk about the behavior and then we assume we're seeing their mind. But sometimes I know one person, I mean, the same thing, one person said, what am I going to do with my 15-year-old daughter? She throws chairs at me. And I said, tell me about her good qualities. So if you can see that he's fundamentally good ethics in his mind, he's got a good heart. He doesn't cheat or steal and lie. And, you know, I mean, do you see what I'm trying to say? They're important things to see. When he's good, how does he behave when he's good? When he's good, how do you communicate with him? How does he
No,
communicate?
he's a generally
he like?
sweet. He's a generally sweet boy, and
Okay,
we
that's what I'm
hang out,
asking.
and we do everything, have a good time, joke around. Essentially, we play this game called Fortnite together, and we have a great time. We watch movies, and that's the majority of the time. But what it can be is incredibly overwhelming, not only for myself, but my older son and
Of
my
course, yeah.
and so it's like, how do I help them all? And I know it has to start with me first.
Exactly, I understand. How old is
Uh,
he?
He is 9.
Okay. Does he have a lot of time with just himself and you, or is he with other kids all the time?
Well, that's the biggest issue, is that he hasn't been able to develop any good friendships
I
because of
understand, yeah.
COVID.
I
And it's just like, and then we just moved recently, and
Yeah.
so we are essentially his friends, right? And
I
we are
understand.
the ones that take him and do stuff and have a good
Um,
time. But he hasn't really developed any kind of real, I mean, if you looked at his bed right now, he's with my wife right now, they're sleeping in the bed. There's
Yeah.
plushies all around him. And I talked to him today. It's like, so what are these plushies doing? And he is saying, oh, they're protecting me. And he carries those plushies
What's the
everywhere.
plushie? What's the plushie? Sorry.
They're essentially stuffed animals,
Oh,
stuffed
okay,
people.
okay.
Uh,
So anyway, so I just think you keep trying to see his mind, but don't just buy into. I mean, it is true these labels are fine that you're talking, but try to see beyond the labels and try to see his heart. I mean, try to see his heart, because that's his saving grace. Behavior, behavior is one thing, because whatever he can't control his mind, he can't control his behavior, so he's out of control. But I mean, but his heart is another thing. So to be able to get to see his heart, I'm trying to be wishy-washy here. And then, of course, do everything you can to find ways to help him, give him a therapist or whatever you like. But I mean, in general, does he? I mean, does he love you and his mother, his
Oh,
wife?
yeah, he says, I love you, Papa. And he says, I'm really happy. And, when he first came to our home, when he was 3 years old, he used to kick, pinch,
I understand.
pinch, punch,
Yeah,
scream.
I
And then
understand.
we put him in timeout, complete waste of time. And then I say, well, wait a minute. I'm doing all this meditation stuff. Why don't I do a time in? And so I would pick him up, hug him really strong
Right.
because he did
Okay.
that sensory input. And I would sing to him.
Right. And this
But that
helped.
one's when he was 3 years old. And so
Okay.
now he's 9. He's a little older. I don't think that's going to be.
Is he intelligent? Is he good at his schoolwork?
Yes, he's an excellent reader.
I mean, this is where for you've got to learn to see your own mind and really be skillful with your behavior with him. Deal with your mind on your own, but don't express it with him. You've got to have really wise behavior and find and look outside the box like that, hugging him, for example, instead of telling him off, because that doesn't help. When a person is really aggressive like that, they just become more aggressive because they're going to be proud and stubborn. But I think, just you got to get to see his heart and see his good. Try and see, no matter what his negative behavior is, you've got to know his good qualities. Because if you're his father, you've got to encourage those good qualities. In other words, the more you see his good qualities, the more you can speak to those parts of himself. Don't always see him through the lenses of all those labels, Do you understand my point?
Yes.
And that's how you can get more wise. And of course, you've got to have a lot of patience, but a lot of skill as well. I can't imagine it. I mean, I can't imagine it being so courageous.
But
And of course,
compared to when he first came to our home, he is done so amazing.
Okay, then so just keep having confidence. But you've got to see his mind well. When I said to you ethics, and you didn't know what I meant, you've got to look at his fundamental mind, look at his fundamental qualities. And that's the Buddhist approach. It's very important. Instead of all these labels on his behavior, And I mean, maybe see another thing too is this. Where do you live? What town?
I used to live in Austin, and now I live in Kyle.
Where?
Kyle. It's Kyle, Texas.
Oh, okay. I mean, there wouldn't be a Tibetan doctor there, would there be? But you see,
No,
the Tibetan medical system is a bit like the Chinese, because his wind energies are completely berserk. That impacts upon his different states of mind. But Tibetan medicine is herbal medicine that works on the wind energies, which then calms the mind. So I think if you can look a little bit into Tibetan doctors, just start researching. You might find something nearby, because it's very powerful. It works slowly, but in a very fundamental way. Do you understand?
The Benton doctors, because I've just been in contact with Geshe Sopa, and he's our
Okay,
resident teacher
Okay,
at the
fine.
Austin Center.
What is he suggesting? Same thing, similar thing, or
He
not?
suggested, it's called, and maybe you might know this, he called bull blessing or bear blessing.
I don't know about these.
It's
But
in-
he's good. He'd help you. But try and check a Tibetan doctor, because their medicine works the way they describe our energy. We've got this subtle wind energy, and we've got the mind, and they're very linked. And his wind energy is like berserk, so the mind is berserk. You calm the wind energies down, that calms his mind down. So just look into it. But it seems like you're doing well. Keep moving, keep practicing, but try to see as much as you can beyond the behavior. Try to see his mind. And then you speak to that part of himself more and more, because when you're like that and you've got this bad behavior, I know for myself of being very angry as a child, everybody only sees that and they keep responding to your anger, so you keep being angry in return. It's a vicious circle. So you've got to be very wise, Claude, to try to speak to the better part of him, slowly to encourage that part of him to grow, which is what you're doing anyway. Keep moving. You're doing great.
You're laser focused. It's amazing how you just continue to just always know what to say.
Darling, I'll do my best. Okay. Good, Claude. Thank you, sweetheart. What else, people? Anybody got any questions?
Yeah, we have a question from Denise.
Good, Denise. Talk to me.
Hi, Venerable. I'm wondering if I may offer something that worked for me to Claude.
Oh, I see. Maybe, okay.
It's just really quick.
Okay, go then, sure.
We learned it from Mr. Rogers, and we bought a plushie that was a puppet. And instead of me asking my son, how are you feeling? Because I was somebody he wanted to impress, so he didn't feel like he could share. We bought this puppet and we called it Felix, Feelings Felix.
Mhm.
And it was, what are you feeling right now? And he shared and shared and shared. And it gave me this opportunity to see the positive much more easily.
That's very good, Denise. Well done. Yeah.
And
Maybe you can text more to him. Maybe you can text each other and tell him about that.
yes, and he actually uses sometimes his plushies as saying like, I'm so mad, and he'll start throwing, and it's like, I hate this. And I didn't think of it that way, but that's his other way of
communicating. Very interesting. That's very kind. Thank you, Denise. So kind.
You're welcome.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah, please.
gonna
Anybody else
send
have any
you a-
questions? Thanks, darlings. Anyone else questions? Absolutely. Questions? Anybody?
I have one.
Who's I?
Oh, that was me.
Which eye is this? Oh, sweetheart, talk to him. Yes.
Oh, I was just wondering, when you try to look at the good side or the other side of things,
Or-
how do
yeah.
you not get nihilistic about it? To say, oh, well, they did this
Example.
act.
But give me an example. Give me an
Like
example.
the Taliban, we think the
The
Taliban are
what?
awful.
Taliban. Okay.
Yeah, we think that they're awful. They do these horrible things.
Uh,
And then I try to say, oh, well, they're inside, there's a good person in there. They're good people. But yet I don't want to get nihilistic and say,
No,
well, just
I see your point
excuse
now. I
that.
see your point. See, this is the point. This is the point that you got to see the facts. So you got to see the facts, and they have certain, maybe by the way they express their politics, they are showing their position, aren't they? So they're facts. They can be facts. There's two things, sweetheart. One is, what are the facts? Claude did cheat on me. That's a fact. But then there is our opinion that we put on top of that, which is coming because because Claude upset me. So then the anger comes on top. That's the problem. Saying a fact is not a problem. Saying that Claude cheated on me, that's a fact. So that is an opinion, but it's a relative truth. So there's nothing wrong with that. He did cheat on me. The Taliban do what they do, they do what they do. So the part of our mind we have to change is our opinions about them. That's the point. It's not, I agree, your point is good. You don't suddenly say, oh, they're really a nice person and pat them on the head and it's all not true. That is nihilism. I agree with you. That isn't the thing. But another way to think, but the other one to think about, of course, if we're Buddhists, you'd use the view of karma to understand why they do what they do. And that's what would then generate compassion. Because compassion in Buddhism isn't some sentimental patting a person on the head saying, oh, well, the poor thing can't help it. Karma is a powerful basis for why you'd have compassion for someone who harms another, because they're addicted to their negative qualities. They've brought into this life the viewpoints they've got. They brought into this life the wish to kill or steal or rape or whatever they do. And the suffering that they are causing themselves is unbelievable. This is the basis of the compassion of the bodhisattvas. So you still see the Taliban do what they do, but you know why they're doing it. And because you know that they're harming themselves now and in the future, that's the basis of real compassion. That's a powerful view to have. Do you see my point?
Thank you.
Are you understanding?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, exactly. So what else, people? Good point.
Elizabeth had the next question.
Who is there?
Elizabeth?
Elizabeth, yes. Where are you?
Hi, Robina.
Hello, sweetheart. Where are you?
Hi.
I'm trying to see you. Oh, there you go. I can see you now, darling. Talk to me.
I just want to say I've been following you for many years and I feel so blessed that finally I get to see and talk to you.
Good, an Australian girl there. Where are you calling from?
I'm from Castlemaine in central Victoria.
Okay, darling. Good. I'm happy to talk to you.
So when I was younger, I found it a lot easier to follow these teachings. Anger was one thing that really brought me to Buddhism. I feel like as I got older, the challenge between I think I've experienced a lot more trauma over the years, and the difference between being open and having boundaries and having self-respect, like I've really struggled with that. So I try and have a sense of calm. So now my children are affected by people that have hurt me.
What do you mean by that, darling? Affected by people who've hurt you?
So the children have seen me in physical trauma where I've been hurt and unwell.
I understand.
And so they've seen this person is still in the community.
I understand, darling.
And so I identified with the other gentleman that was talking about his son acting out. So one of my children is doing that. He has a lot of anger towards this person that hurt me.
Yes. So then the question, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the question is, but I guess it's just, continuing to practice, isn't it? Like,
that's it. See, the thing is, this is
harder as I get older. As I get older, it just feels more like more stuff happens. So there's more things.
I know, but I've got a feeling, Elizabeth, maybe it's a bit unfair to yourself. My feeling is, and this is not uncommon, that when the Lamas say this, that when we really do start to practice, we think our mind is getting worse. It's just that we're seeing our mind more deeply, and you're digging deep down and you're seeing there's plenty of shit in there, Do you understand? We're seeing it, Elizabeth. When we're blindly ignorant and blaming the whole world, we don't even notice our suffering. So maybe you're not getting worse. Maybe you're seeing yourself more deeply. You're drilling down, and that's really good.
Yeah, look, I think it's just that when I was younger, I wanted to take refuge and become a nun.
Yes.
And so my teacher said to me, he said, no, this is your karma, this is your work. He said, that's easy for you. You're now here with children, living in the real world. And I feel like there's always been an element of resentment about that.
I understand. But you've got the kids now, so that's it. That's your life.
Yeah.
So, this is where, so you got to look at your mind, see your stuff, and then you got to look at your child's mind, and you can understand what you're saying. But it's just the same thing to saying to Claude, the more you can see your own mind, the more you can see your mind and what your stuff is and what your projections are, your viewpoints, the more you can separate yourself from your child and see them very clearly. So often
Yeah.
we see our children naturally through our own neuroses. We can't see each other properly. So the more you work on your own mind, the clearer you'll become, and the more clearly you'll be able to see your child, their negative qualities, their positive qualities, and therefore be a wise mum.
Yeah, and I feel like there's just like the subtle, justifiable anger, and then how to feel the anger and then actually have that motivate you to do good. I think that's something that I'm trying to work with him. It's like anger is something that will arise. You can't necessarily completely escape it. It's going to come up. But then
Well, eventually, if you work on your
what
mind,
do you do with that anger?
well,
Like what you've done, like working with people, like my son likes to help the, kids in town that are having problems or whatever. And I said, well, you get yourself in order and then you're in a strong place to be able to actually help people.
That's right. Exactly. That's right.
Yeah.
So he's doing really well then. It's great. So if you're doing well, are you more worried about him or about you right now? What's going on?
Probably me. Just the, I'm just here at a perfect time because I have found the anger becoming quite overwhelming
His
lately.
anger or your anger?
Mine.
You get angry
Yeah,
with whom?
mine.
Is it you get angry with your kids? Or you get angry with the
Everyone.
politics? You get angry
Everyone, everything.
Oh,
Everything, everyone, just some sort of Carly, some Carly energy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what is interesting also to see, Elizabeth, when we really understand that anger is the response to attachment not getting what it wants. So our main disease is this deep bottomless pit of emotional hunger. And when that's thwarted, and that's where we just have to learn to live with it and attempt to harness the response, so to go deeper beneath dissatisfaction. Whatever happens, we're dissatisfied. I'm not good enough. He's not good enough. It's not good enough. The politics is not good enough. And then anger blurts out. So try to go beneath the anger to the dissatisfaction, because dissatisfaction is the attachment. And when we think I'm not enough, it's not enough, I haven't got enough, then this is where it all stirs up, Look at the dissatisfaction and learn, like Lamiyeshi said, we have to learn to be satisfied, which sounds a bit like catch-22.
Yeah, no, it's so true. Yes.
And I mean, does it manifest often in yourself as you not being enough, you not being good enough, you not doing enough? That's the most deep one that's the deepest attachment we all have, darling.
Yeah.
That's the one we're never satisfied we are, and therefore we're always looking hungrily for approval out there. So that's one of the deepest ones we have to give up as well. So just slowly, Elizabeth, and try and pat yourself on the back occasionally and try to be satisfied. I'm doing the best I can. I'm doing okay. It's good enough. Lamiyeshi would always say, it's good enough. You understand, darling?
Yeah.
Try to think that. It's sort of a bit like humble. We're a bit rude to ourselves, We've got to be a bit more humble with ourselves. It's good enough. You're doing okay, Elizabeth. And it's one step at a time, baby. It's a process.
Yeah.
Do you understand, darling?
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah,
Good.
so true. So true.
Thank you. Thank you, darling, very much. Thank you. Who else?
And
There's
the
a
next
hand over
question is
there.
Christine from LA.
Yeah, come on, Christine. Talk to me.
Hello, Vulnerable. Good evening.
Hello there.
I'm really interested in
Can't hear you, darling.
not so much the I as in me, but the reactive. So I can be in a place of peace. I can be in a place of calm. I can be disattached from my thoughts and my feelings. But then I find myself after a period of time where my brain wanders and I become reactive to the actions of other people. And when really I just need to just stay back in my lane and not be reactive.
So, okay, so thank you. It's a really good, let's just look at that. So the words we'd use, if we use the simple Buddhist psychological model, reactive means something is happening out there that you don't like, isn't it? So you start having about it. Is that what you're saying, isn't it, basically?
Yes.
That's right. That's exactly right. This is in a way, it's a profound thing. This is where we go crazy, Christine, because the Buddhist way of putting it, we've got this emotional hunger. in this attachment, and it's always wanting something more. It's always feeling that what is there isn't enough. And we're kind of, and it's very subtle. So when it doesn't get what it wants, which is what you're saying, when someone thinks, do something that isn't satisfying you, which is what you're calling reactive, that then we start to get critical. So the thing is this: we can, like you said before, staying in your own lane. Powerful way to put it, but it's a hugely powerful practice, Christine, because the world is full of crazy people. I mean, the world is just insane. The world is really full of crazy, unhappy human beings. And if we don't stay steady, if we don't stay in our own lane, it's such a great staying, we will go mad. And that's what attachment and anger are. Attachment is constant wishing that things will be better, and then we get upset and angry when they don't get better. And this is enough to make us completely crazy, you know? So it's really true, because the thing is, we have to ask ourselves the question, this is a really good point. I wonder why it's necessary for me to have an opinion about that person. Let them be. I mean, it's a miracle. It doesn't mean you become detached. It doesn't mean you become uninterested. It just means you observe and try and see it from a compassionate point of view, that people are crazy. People do crazy things. People are harming themselves while they're harming others. So just observing that and not have an opinion, which means don't stick your nose in it, which is another way of saying keep yourself in your own lane. But it's a very powerful practice, Elizabeth. It's not that easy, but it's pretty profound if we can do it. Just observe, but out of sort of some kind of kindness, by looking at the crazy world and what people do. And the thing is, when people harm other people, who do you think they're harming first? Which is themselves. So you can begin to have a bit of compassion when you see this. But yeah, if we don't mind our own business, it doesn't mean cut ourselves off. It means stop having constant negative opinions about people. We will go mad, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, we do. I mean, I myself, I completely understand the level of frustration that happens as I am observing what's happening around me.
That's right.
And
exactly.
granted, I'm in a unique situation, but it's, I can look at that and I can look at that situation and I could go, it's so much more, you're making it so much more difficult than what it needs to be.
Right, exactly. That's the point.
But I'm not sure that I really need to be the person who is saying anything, because then if I'm saying something, then that means I have an attachment to it, right?
But we have to ask ourselves why we always have to have an opinion about everything. That's what we all feel compelled to do, which makes us completely insane. Maybe we just have to let it come and go. Let some things come and go. If it's your child, that's a different discussion, But if it's like the world out there, we just stick our nose in everything. We just go completely nuts. We can still see it happening, but there's a way of interpreting it that could actually make you more compassionate, or make you think, well, thank you for showing me how not to be. It's instead of all the time this criticism, look at these people out there, like as if we're walking around being saints and everybody else is wrong. But sometimes see it as a learning for yourself. If you see a person out there being crazy, instead of criticizing them, think, well, thank you for showing me how not to be. Then you make it a learning for yourself, and it's more gentle, it's more kind. Do you understand?
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Thank you so much.
I find that a very powerful approach,
Thank you, Vulnerable. That's
good, darling. Good.
You.
Good. What else, people? Dearest people? Talk to me.
Feel free to unmute if you have a question, or you can raise a virtual hand and we'll take people in order. We don't have anything else lined up right now, Venerable Ravina.
Okay. So, let's summarize what we're talking about. I mean, the points that Elizabeth's, all these points are just variations on the theme, they've all variations of the theme. Elizabeth's point, Claude's point, Christine's point, but they all, this one of Christine's discussion is a very powerful one. We've got this nice analogy we talk about, isn't it? That a bird needs two wings. It's a way of framing the whole of the Buddhist path to enlightenment. There's the wisdom wing, which is really all the nuts and bolts of work that we're discussing right now, the work you do on your own mind. And then you've got the compassion wing, and the compassion wing is dependent upon you doing the work on your own mind. That's pretty clear, like we discussed with both Elizabeth and Claude. So then what I just said to Christine is that I find this very powerful if we can remember it. And this is the whole point of seeing things from another point of view. Because we're all driven by attachment, and it's so primordial, everyone's got it, way more subtle than we can even imagine the meaning of this word is, you know. It's always hungry, it always wants things to be different. It's never satisfied. So when you're living in a big crazy city, you know, and you're living in anywhere, where you live, wherever you live, there's always going to be something that will happen that won't satisfy your attachment. It's just inevitable. It's just join the universe here. So instead of not just suppressing and then becoming blind and not looking at anything, you can't do that. And instead of sticking our nose in everything, like Elizabeth, like Christine said, keep yourself in your own lane. The really powerful approach, there's two, basically based on these two wings of the bird, there's two approaches that we can practice. And the one I just said to Christine, I find very powerful. And that's applying the wisdom wing. In other words, you look at the external world from the point of view of it's like a workshop, and you're learning. It's like, you know, if you're learning nutrition, and if you're learning nutrition, everybody you see on the street, instead of criticizing, oh, there she eats too much, oh, look at her eating too much and she's obese, or you can tell that she doesn't eat properly, you use your knowledge about nutrition, and it's learning for you. And everybody you see, you are right in what you're saying about them, but you take it as a learning for you. Well, my God, look at that person. You can tell she needs more vitamin D. Look at that person. She needs more vitamin C. Thank you for showing me how not to be. And it becomes a rich learning. I always used to think when I'd read about Mr. Trump, some people love Mr. Trump. Talk about viewpoints, isn't it? Some people can't stand Mr. Trump. Well, I didn't particularly like Mr. Trump. So instead of all the time criticizing, this orgy of criticism that we love to involve ourselves in when it comes to, say, politicians or the world, instead of that, and I'd read a story about him, and I'd go, well, that's interesting. That sounds like lying. That sounds like hubris. That sounds like arrogance. That sounds like stealing. Instead of criticizing it, I would say to myself, like I said to Christine, thank you for showing me my own mind. Thank you for showing me how not to be. Then you have a completely different experience of the world. It becomes a rich learning for you about yourself, instead of just, you know, what we say in Australia and England, instead of wanking, this constant criticism, go crazy, you know. So, okay, now if you're in Claude's position, you can have that part of your mind observing your son, saying, oh, thank you for showing me how not to be, but you don't just leave it there, because you've got to also help your son. That's different. Then you've got to do something that's beneficial for him. But in most of the world, you mind your own business. You don't start walking up into all these people on the street, well, you should eat better, because you become a fanatic nutritionist. You are correct. You're in what you're seeing, you are absolutely correct. You can diagnose everybody, but it's not your business to walk up and tell them what to eat. But you can learn from it, and you learn it for yourself. Then life becomes a rich experience. Now, that's the wisdom wing. Now, the other one is compassion. You see it from the point of view of that person harming themselves, and you have compassion. Look what they're doing to themselves. This is a way of applying wisdom and compassion. The whole world, you can see the world either through compassion or through the wisdom one. That's it. And then you don't go crazy. You learn from it. Everything is a learning then. And it becomes rich grist for your mill, I tell you. We have to remember it, that's all. What else, dears people? What else? You want me to talk more, huh? All right. What time is it? 7. What time do we start? 7, an hour ago, yeah. Okay, so I mean, yeah.
Okay.
Huh? What happened?
It was me.
Who's me? What's me?
It's
Hi,
me.
sweetie pie. Hi, Lynn, darling. Talk to me.
I want your opinion. Maybe that's not the word. I want your reaction to the word or phrase self-care that's being talked about a lot.
When? Haven't been talking about here, have we?
In what context, or what did you say? Sorry.
No, darling. So tell me what the question is. Say the question.
What does it mean to you?
I don't know. I never use that term. What do you use it? What do you mean by it?
I don't use it.
Well, then
In
why
fact,
are you bringing it up?
Because it seems like it seems like we are never not caring for ourselves. I think what it means is to take care of yourself instead of other people first. So we work on our own mind, blah, 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 blah. But it seems like, oh, anyway, I think I just have to think about it more.
Yeah, so Lynn, I don't know.
I react negatively to it. It's my
Okay,
feeling.
Okay, that's fine. I don't use the term anyway. So
Yeah.
okay, let's just look at this. Let's look at
Li-
this.
I
What
have the same.
find- Huh?
I had that same experience today. I got
David,
an.
Lord.
Yes. Hi, Rabina.
Hello, darling.
I got an
Tell us.
email from, sent out by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's office. And
Yes.
she was talking about self-care. It was a whole email about self-care.
How
and how
interesting. Well, you
especially
can tell us
people-
what it means.
People who are activists, they get burned out and they just get caught up in their anger. And she's saying, oh, you have to take some time out, to take care of yourself, so
Okay.
that you'll be able to sort of,
There you go.
continue the struggle, and put one
Okay.
foot in front of the other,
Yeah.
and not just get completely burned out. But, a lot of self-care doesn't strike me as actually being all that nourishing. She
Exactly.
did highlight the spiritual aspect of too, but a lot of self-care is just like, go to a spa or,
No,
do some.
this I find is a totally interesting point, David. Now I was going to get onto the point, but you've said it so perfectly.
Good.
I think, when we say in the Buddhist point of view that the compassion wing is the point, you got to get, and that's like the equivalent of getting out there and changing the world, what she's saying. And it's true, that is the point. But this is the thing that the Buddhist analysis, and this is to answer Lynn, the Buddhist analysis is why we have to look at why we get burned out, why we get exhausted. And that's what the wisdom wing work is. And of course, the Buddha's view is you get exhausted because you've got attachment and anger, but that would not satisfy Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez's office because it sounds cruel and mean. But this is the point that Buddha's making. And if we can hear the Buddha's advice he's being kind to us by telling us, honey child, it's amazing you get out there and help the world, but what drags you down, what makes you exhausted, what makes you is the fact that you've got attachment, which is this bottomless pit that wants things to be the way you want them, which then causes you to be angry when things don't turn out the way you want. And so the answer to that is give up attachment and give up anger. But that's not a very satisfying answer for the world. And that's the
right.
real self-care. But it's hard to hear it because it sounds fundamentalist to us. It sounds like you're being mean, or you mean you're blaming me. And that's why it's so hard to hear. But that's the real self-care. In other words, the person who's a really good political activist is a person who doesn't have much attachment and doesn't have much anger, and they will never give up. I remember Martin Luther King. I always think of that fellow. He was amazing. He was clear he didn't have much obvious anger, and he was there. He was never stopping. And he'd say, it is good to find the faults. It's good to see the terrible things in the world. But then you say, what can I do to help? Not just get angry and exhausted. I mean, this is the one, it's so fascinating, but that's the typical Western one, isn't it, David? I remember in a conference last year, I was on a panel and I was trying to make this point because they were all saying that same one, you got to take care of yourself. And there's nothing wrong with a massage, nothing wrong with a little weep and a lie down and a good sleep. Do that for sure. But we do not see in our Western culture that the reason we suffer is because of our attachment and anger and our jealousy and resentment. It seems too heavy for us to say that, but that's exactly the point, And anybody we know who's a really good activist for others, whether they're nurses in a hospital dealing with COVID-19 or whether they're political activists, they've got a happy mind. They never give up. They never get stressed. And that's what His Holiness said one time. The fellow interviewing him said, but it seems like anger is good. It makes you act. And His Holiness said, I know what you mean, but if mainly you're coming from anger, it doesn't last. You'll get exhausted and you'll give up. But if you're coming from compassion, which you can only have if you've given up attachment and anger to whatever degree, then you will never give up. And they're the activists that you see who never give up because they've got patience and perseverance, So that's the real self-care. That's exactly right. It's a perfect point, David. Thank you.
I've noticed too that in the wellness industry, it's very focused on middle class people. And I had an auntie say to me once that for a lot of women, dodging a fist is like the main level of self-care that a lot of women have.
Dodging a fist, that sounds very Australian. I know, well, that's there you go, dodging a fist, like that Oh, anyway, yeah, that's very interesting. That's a very interesting point, Lynn. And so, David, such a point, but it's a hard one to hear this. That's the real self-care. And that's Buddha's entire point. You suffer, babies, because you've got attachment and anger, but it's too hard for us to hear that because we just take it as blame. It's a very interesting point. It's fascinating. Wow.
Venerable,
What?
hi.
Hello, Denise.
So hello again. Thank you so much for everything always. So I started learning about Buddhism through the FPMT and in the Mahayana tract, and I felt like, or path, and it just resonated and it just made so much sense. And I saw myself changing. And a friend of mine said, hey, there's this mindful meditation teacher training course that I think that you would be good in. And so I signed up for it, and it's a 2-year course, and we're almost done with the first year.
Good.
And I find myself being attached to Mahayana Buddhism. And I find myself going, like the course said, the base of all lessons in this course will be self-compassion.
I see.
That was the very beginning of it. And I was like, okay. And we go through, and I have been able, Lama Zopa had a beautiful course that he asked His Holiness to teach on the Dharma as your mother. And that one was beautiful to feel like, okay, this mother that I didn't have is available to me, but not in a form of a mother. And I feel like there was some type of self-compassion in that now, where I can speak without crumbling as this person that didn't have this mom that had that type of nurturing. So I go back and forth between understanding it's no self, right? No self and self-compassion. I asked one of my teachers to come in and teach a self-compassion course to this compassion group that I teach, that I have for realtors. It's 14,000 members. And my Mahayana teacher went, doesn't resonate with me, can't teach the course.
Really, that's awful. That she should have. So the thing is, see, putting it in this way, self-compassion is not, I mean, technically that's a contradiction in terms in Buddhism, because compassion is related to others, but we like to use that term in our culture. But this is again the point, the real self-compassion in Buddhism is recognizing that our pain comes from our own attachment and anger and fears and jealousy and depression. And that when we can begin to hear that, we can be kind to ourselves. We usually hear it as a criticism. When we hear it as kindness, that the pain itself is the very pain, the attachment and anger and depression themselves are the pain. And that, so self-compassion is understanding that, but it takes a while to get there, because we're all a bit fundamentalist and all love to blame either somebody else or we turn it against ourselves, and that's our tragedy, you know.
So I find myself stuck in this, okay, wait, if I'm practicing Buddhism, I'm not attached. So I need to not be attached to the Mahayana. So then I need to
don't chuck out the baby with the bathwater, darling. I mean, it's a long time, Denise, before we are giving up attachment. It's going to be a long time. So the Mahayana approach is very skillful. Given that we've got attachment, at least let's be attached to useful things. That's a really much wiser way to put it, Denise. It's impossible to think of that you can give up attachment now. So you've got to be, the Mahayana approach is to be wise and at least be attached to good things, useful things. So nothing wrong with that. But if you're seeing it, understanding it properly, it'll go away eventually. So there's no contradiction, Denise.
Thank you. Thanks.
Go for going.
Thank you.
What else, people? Any other points to bring up?
We don't have any other questions lined up, but Venerable Ravina, I'll just mention real quick, I put something in the chat. I kind of took an opportunity for a little commercial as a follow-up to the talk about self-care and anger and activism. We actually have a special event coming up in November, anger, social justice, and Buddhism.
Okay.
With Sujatha, who I know you know, and
Sujatha, yes.
Shahida Simmons.
Sujatha.
Yeah.
Wonderful. That's wonderful.
So
That's
if people want to continue that conversation, you know, they can certainly join, and of course, you're welcome to join too.
See, this is the point. It reminds me when I was my first kind of phase of my life. I was well, the second phase, whatever you like. I was a really full-on political activist, you know. And this is when I see it now in hindsight. When, in other words, I couldn't distinguish between being angry with the injustice and seeing the injustice. This is the thing I was saying before. So this is the revelation that, as Martin Luther King put it, he actually said, it's good to be angry, but what he meant was, it's good to see the suffering. You need to see the problems. So now, and when I was a political activist, I couldn't distinguish between, and this is how we all are, we see something that doesn't suit us, so then anger comes out. We can't, so then we think if I don't get angry, we're chucking the baby out with the bathwater and not seeing anything. That's nihilism. It's just not like that. So it's this skill to see the thing that's wrong. I mean, that's what compassion is based on. Seeing the suffering in the world. Look at the racism, look at the sexism, look at the poverty, look at the terrorism. It is unbelievable suffering, but one having the view of karma, which explains it. And this is massive in Buddhism because, you know, with respect to our materialist views, we don't have much analysis of why there is suffering in the world, you know. So if we have the Buddhist analysis of karma, this is enormous to have first. Then on the basis of understanding why there is suffering, then you know, okay, what can I do to help? And this is the attitude of the bodhisattva. Every time they see suffering, every time we see suffering, we just have a panic attack and can't cope and either bury our head in the sand or want to kill everybody, or like be a political activist and scream and shout and yell. Or so that if we're taking the appropriate view, you see it, you know why there is this injustice, and then you check, well, can I help? So if you can go to Iraq tomorrow or to Afghanistan tomorrow and make it better for everybody, please, I'll pay your airfare. But we know we can't. So what do you do with it? You don't just run away. You say, okay, I can't. And this is what bodhicitta is. You then go, well, what am I going to do? You take this personal responsibility. I can't do much now, but I'm going to keep working on myself so I can become a Buddha. And it's a long-term view, for goodness sake. And then you have this courage, the brave attitude of the bodhisattva who will not give up. You don't give up. You do what you can. You help that ant, that dog, that one person, but you don't give up working on yourself so you can perfect yourself, so eventually you will be qualified. So this is always the brave attitude of the courage of the bodhisattvas who have this courage. I mean, even just on a relative level, you look at the political activists, Martin Luther King, who never gave up, never gave up, never gave up. That's the powerful attitude. And you do what you can and don't have a panic attack when everything is a disaster, you know, which is what anger is. The panic attack is anger. You can't handle it. This is the courage we need to develop, you know. But of course, we have to know where we're at. If you can't cope with the world out there, well, keep out of the way. You've got to know where you're at, what you can handle. Otherwise, you go crazy, you know. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. So I'm sitting in quiet little Santa Fe where it's so peaceful. You see about 2.5 crazy people. And then 2 weeks ago, I went to New York City. I could not believe, I thought everybody on the streets was crazy. Every single person was crazy. And the drunks and alcoholics and people falling over, talking to themselves. I could not believe it. And I suddenly thought, what the hell am I doing in boring old Santa Fe? So I'm going to start traveling again. I like crazy people. So I'm going to Europe for 3 months, December, January, and February. Then I'll start traveling around the States again. A little bit here, but I'll keep my little base in Santa Fe. So I'll come out to California and see you all. All right, darlings. Before we all die.
If you really like crazy people, I'll invite you here to Florida, but that's
Florida. Yeah, Florida's pretty crazy.
more of a joke for the US people in the audience.
Which bit of Florida? Miami?
I'm about 2 hours north of Miami and south, but it's still South Florida.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Now all these big cities are completely insane, but I like it. It woke me up. Somehow I kind of woke up out of a dream thinking, what the hell am I doing in Santa Fe? You know, this quiet little town. Nothing wrong with it. I'll come back here. I've got a little spot here I can come back to. Anyway, blah, blah, blah.
I've got a lovely back house for you with your name on it, Robina.
Oh, darling. I'm very happy.
Northern California, Mountain View.
Okay, good. Okay, nothing wrong. Anyway, you people, what else is there? Come on, you guys. Ask me some more meaty questions. Nothing? No questions? No
Hey,
questions.
Venerable.
There's Maria.
Hi.
Hello.
Thank
Hello,
you. Thank you so much. So you mentioned there's been mention of nihilism, and I hear that word and I haven't been able to apply it to something.
Yeah.
in my practice.
Yes.
But there was something that kind of triggered something for me. And
Huh.
one of my most challenging relationships is with my mom. And so there's a lot of work there to do for
Yes.
me. And
Yes.
I love it, you know, good, bad, and the ugly. But
Good.
if I understand nihilism correctly, what happens is we have really, really good days, like for a week. And then, you know, in the beginning, I'm like, this is, enjoy it today because it's going to change. It can change tomorrow. Enjoy it today because it can change tomorrow. And then I'm kind of swept away by how many fantastic days we have. And then I kind of forget about all the other stuff that comes out for us, the delusional states that we both end up having. And then it just kind of blows up in my face. Like we're both in anger, or we're both just delusional. And so nihilism, is that
No,
when
I
I'm
think so. Okay, now forget what nihilism is, but what you're saying, it seems to me, this is how attachment works, darling. Attachment is unbelievably more subtle and more nuanced than we think it is. It's not just like, oh, I like chocolate cake. It's so primordial. And it's this, like I said, emotional hunger. So when attachment's getting what it wants, when everything is going nicely, what happens is we cling to it. Oh, now everything's lovely. Isn't it fantastic? And we forget that things change. And then what happens is you start to fight, the bubble bursts, you go crashing down, and then you go, oh my God, everything's a disaster. And we think that that won't change. So we're too stuck. 1 minute it's all up. We think now we found it's all perfect, and then it goes collapsing down. Oh my God, now it's a disaster, and you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. So there's got to be more, literally, forget nihilism. You've got to be more just recognizing if things are wonderful, delight in it, be happy, but don't forget to keep watching your mind, recognizing attachment, seeing what's causing it, and then be more flexible and know that things go up and down, you know, things change. That's all. So nihilism,
Okay.
I would say, emotionally is really like what depression is. Nothing matters. So that's what happens when attachment is all delicious and excited. Everything's all buzzy and lovely. And then when the bubble bursts, you go crashing down, and now everything is despair and hopeless. I think emotionally, that's emotional nihilism. When nothing matters, everything's a disaster. Nothing's important. When you're deeply depressed, it's like nihilism. Nothing is of value. You collapsed, you know. So attachment
Okay.
and this internalized hopelessness, they're the extremes we go between.
Okay.
So we're just
That
getting more aware, more conscious, and if things are going well. And the key is for you with your mum is to be patient and humble, you know. And of course, your mother, I mean, mothers are like red rags to a bull, aren't they? We know that. You've got to watch yourself like a hawk, watch your mind, see, this is also one more point. Maybe we can do this more. When are we meeting again? Tomorrow, isn't
Yeah,
it?
we're pretty close to our scheduled end time now,
I know.
but we have 90 minutes tomorrow.
Exactly. So I think what we'll talk about there is, you know, when it comes to red rags to the bull, the first practice, and this is maybe also for Claude, when you've got people who are like red rags for your bull for you, the first practice is shut your mouth. 90% of our problems would go away if we could shut our mouths. So I think that's a good topic for tomorrow. Let's look at that one. It seems so silly, almost like a boring practice. Oh, what do you mean, shut your mouth? But it's a huge practice, and it can be the solution to so many problems. So why don't we finish there, and we can carry on with that tomorrow.
Okay. Thank
All
you
right,
so much,
Petals?
Venerable Ravina.
Thank you, precious people. So happy to see you all. Jangchub, Semchog, Rinpoche. Don't put the prayers up. I forget what the words are, but think. Here we've been for 90 minutes. As many moments as there've been is as many seeds we've planted. So may we nourish these seeds with this moment forward, with our hard work, our effort, and our practice, and delight, Elizabeth, delight in our progress. Okay, all of us. Don't just think I'm doing not good enough. And then know that these seeds will ripen one day as our marvelous potential. And may compassion grow and grow in the hearts of all. That's it, people. Thank you, precious ones.